be so cold on such a poignant day when his dog is to die? Why isn't his family with him? What is it with you Brits? I was in my 20s before Canada had her own red maple leaf flag. The schools my brother and I went to in Toronto, Allenby Public School and Earl Haig Collegiate, both named after World War I British field marshals, flew either the Union flag or the Red Ensign, a flag with the Union flag in the corner and Canada's coat of arms on its red background. English-speaking Canadians of my era were raised more British than the British. The Queen was my Queen. Britain's Parliament was the mother of all parliaments. I read Rudyard Kipling and Thomas Hardy at school. I knew the names of every British Prime Minister of the 20th century. That's why when I arrived in Britain, I thought I understood the British. But inside, I really wasn't British, and part of me already knew that. My father was born in Glasgow, so I proudly claim patriality, and I continue to feel a strong affiliation with Scotland. His family emigrated to Canada in 1907 when he was 1 year old, but enough of Scotland remained in him for him to name me Bruce, my brother Robert, and our dog Angus. My father's grandfather, a blacksmith, was born in a town with different names. In German, Lazdane; in Russian, Lozdy; in Polish, Lozdijai; Lithuanian, Lazdijai; and Yiddish, Lazdai. The Fogles called the town Lazdai because they were part of the great Jewish emigration out of Eastern Europe that began in the 1870s. My mother's family, the Breslins, were also part of that biblical exodus. They came to Canada from what they called in Yiddish Tolochin, the Lithuanians called Talasinas, the Russians Tolochin. They too were part of the great other that arrived in Britain, the United States, and Canada at the end of the 19th century. And as much as my parents' families had become part of the weft of 20th century Canadian life, prominent in medicine and business, I knew I was an outsider, that I wasn't part of Canada's founding British or French heritage. Seeing this man and his nanny, both seemingly emotionless, the nanny telling the man to go out into the hall while I give his dog a lethal injection, the man doing so without question, hits me like a bolt. I'm not part of them. I don't want to be part of them. Yet I think I also intuitively understood even then that what I was watching was a performance, an act, a veneer, learned behavior, British theatre. I didn't yet fully understand how deep the relationship can be between us and other animals, but I instinctively knew it was impossible for this man not to feel some emotion at the end of his dog's life, or for this woman not to feel deeply for the man she had known since his infancy. There's a common thread of compassion running through all cultures. It's simply part of all of us. It would also be years before I understood that the people I was meeting in Knightsbridge were but a sliver of Britain's then class-addled culture, a strand that, but for a few diehards, has now almost disappeared. During the following decades, like some of Britain's colonial administrators, inch by inch I went native. I see the same happening today with many of my American clients, posted to London by their financial institutions, initially despairing that Britain isn't America, then never wanting to leave. It didn't take long, certainly no more than a decade, for me to accept the weather. Accepting the Brits, going the whole hog and becoming British, took longer. It was easiest with, and I hate to use the term, real people. Almost the first Londoner to invite me out for a drink was Mick, one of the local dustmen. He was someone I could relax with. With other clients I saw at the clinic, it took longer for me to warm to them. In my first years as a practicing vet, I would discover that although I had a good grounding in the mechanics of medicine and how to sensibly diagnose and treat animals, I had no training at all in how to understand either my patients or the people who brought them to me. I didn't yet realize how uplifting pets are, how they make us smile and feel good. This is a story of how someone who is trained that animals have no feelings or emotions at one of the best veterinary schools in the world came to understand how dreadfully wrong that part of my education was. This is a memoir of my first years as a vet in what was the most exciting time and place to be one, London in the early 1970s. It is an outsider's view of the Britain that then existed, how that outsider went native and found a perfect home, and how caring for animals evolved from make, do, and mend to the more sophisticated, but not necessarily wholly better level it has reached today. Chapter 1. There's a rhythm to life that's greater than years, a natural order. We repeat our mistakes because evolution is too foolish to retain accumulated wisdom. But joyously we experience pleasures